It's about 1 or 2 after 2. I know you guys have a lot going on your plate and you're busy, so let's get started. At least go through the housekeeping stuff at the beginning. Thanks for joining us. This is essentially the do's and don'ts of employment branding for veterans. So if you're on the wrong flight, feel free to get up and leave the cabin. We won't be offended. Otherwise, if that's what you signed up for, that's where you are. My name is Joel Cheesman. I'm founder of Ratedly. Some of you know Ratedly, some of you do not. Ratedly is a anonymous employer review monitoring service. We're very aware of employment branding, monitoring it as well as managing it, and to the point that we can have experts come on and talk about particular segments of employer branding. We'd love to do that, and that's why we're doing this today. Instead of me talking, we have vet hiring expert Chad Sowash on. Our webinar today is sponsored by Veterans Job Exchange, who has been just really kind to help support this initiative, and we appreciate that. A little more about America's Job Exchange / Veterans Exchange. If you guys are probably aware of America's Job Exchange, if not, we recommend you check them out. If you're hiring vets, which I assume many of you are, you owe it to yourself to head on over to Veterans Job Exchange and see what they can do for you. As a registrant of this webinar, we'll give a follow-up email with some more information, as well as a recording of this webinar and some more information about America's Job Exchange and Veterans Exchange. So don't feel like you need to write this down. There will be a version of it that you can use yourself as well as share with colleagues. If you have any questions, there's a chat box at the bottom of your screen. I'll be monitoring that while Chad is speaking. If you have questions, feel free to chime in. We want this to be engaging. We want this to be, something that's interactive. Listening to Chad talk for an hour, trust me, is not, a walk in the park. If you guys can interject, that would be fantastic. So just real quickly before I bring it on, I've known Chad Sowash almost 10 years. He's been in the industry about as long as I have. So you're listening to, I guess, 40 years of experience in the employment space. So we're real lucky to have him. But Chad served in the military. He's probably the foremost expert on military hiring throughout the United States. And we're real lucky to have him. I'll let him give you more of the intricacies of what he does. But he's really, really knowledgeable on the topic. And I'll hand it over to him to enlighten us on employment branding for veteran hiring. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Joel. Can you hear me well? Excellent. Getting the thumbs up. Okay, guys. So today we're going to talk about really the employment branding side of the house, but we're also going to get into some of the recruiting piece because they go together. And I'm sure you already knew that. But it's important that we not just talk about one aspect of employer brand. And not just this community, because this spans beyond just the veteran and military community. A little bit about myself, go to LinkedIn. I am the only Chad Sowash out there. Feel free to connect with me. You can find more about my background. You don't need me to drone on about that. Currently am the co-founder, and principal partner of Catch-22 Consulting, and this is what we do, veteran hiring, and our focus for helping organizations, companies build veteran hiring programs, identify gaps, things of that nature. So let's go ahead and get moving. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about branding, which I see as talking the talk, and recruiting, which is really walking the walk. And we get that backwards sometimes because you really have to walk the walk before you talk the talk. And unfortunately, we get that backwards in many cases. We launch press releases before we do anything. We focus on intentions or intent versus demonstrating what's actually going on in our organization. And that leaves us lost in translation with many of the veterans in our community. And we'll talk a little bit about that. The first question, before we talk about quote unquote veteran friendliness, is you have to ask yourself one question before you get into type of other segment of a community. The first is our process actually candidate friendly? or is it a black hole? Do we offer really great experience, a great experience that goes along with our messaging? Because again, we're talking the talk. We're hyping what we do and who we love and stars and stripes and all that other fun stuff. But at the end of the day, from a candidate standpoint, it has to be down to the bare bones of, is our candidate experience amazing? That's what matters first, because before you can say you're veteran friendly, you have to say you're candidate friendly, because your veterans are going to end up going through your candidate process, period. Now, up front, there might be some pats on the back from some of your employee, resource group members who are veterans at job fairs, and you're patting, some of the veterans and currently serving military on the back, saying, go to our website, man. We really want to see you apply for these jobs. But at the end of the day, the question is, are they still faced with that black hole experience? Because they're not going to remember the pat on the back as much as going into a black hole. And that being said, gets us to a little poll that I did with, it's really not a little poll, it's a pretty big poll, with the social network called Rally Point. And Rally Point is focused on just military and veterans like myself. So it's a Facebook kind of LinkedIn mashup, but it's a social network for just people like me and people that are out there who have military experience. And I wanted to be able to ask the community, the actual veterans, the currently serving military, if a company states they're veteran friendly, what is your personal initial reaction? Because one of the things that we do way too much is we focus on how we feel about the experience, how we feel about veterans and how we want to hire them. Really, at the end of the day, it comes down to, what are we doing to hire them? So in this case, asking this question once again to veterans and currently serving military, what does veteran friendly mean to you? And this one should probably hit you right between the eyes, because it did me. Veterans that were polled, and Recruit Military is a network over 1 million strong. And again, this is a gated community, you could say, of vetted veterans and currently serving military. And only about a fifth of those individuals actually said that they believe companies are really focused on skills, knowledge, and abilities, where all the way down at the bottom, over 40%. This is huge from a messaging standpoint. This is huge from a brand impact standpoint. They're not actually hiring veterans. Companies who say they're veteran friendly are not actually hiring veterans. They're just making the claim to make themselves look good. That hit me very hard, because I know how many companies are working incredibly hard to try to pull in great talent, great veteran talent, which is one of the reasons why I want to have this discussion today. And during that discussion, had over 37,000 interactions. I'm going to say that again. 37,000 interactions with veterans within the Rally Point community. Had well over 160 comments. I mean, Joel considers himself pretty, popular on Facebook, but I don't think he gets 160 comments on any of his. Do you, Joel?
No.
Okay, I'm just checking. A ton of action around this, and from National Guardsmen and National Guard, just focusing on, hey, look, it's an issue for us because we're deployed and we're not sure how employers feel about us, to actual personal experiences, all the way down to individuals actually saying, we need to see proof. These are claims. Again, they're talking the talk, they're not walking the walk. And at the end there, you can see a Master Sergeant from the Air Force with a little bit of humor. It's a trap. It's how he feels that term is. It's really a trap. So this gives us an opportunity to stand back and ask ourselves, are we authentic? Are we genuinely being authentic with saying that we're veteran friendly? Are we demonstrating that we're veteran friendly in our messaging, in our profiling, in our targeting of talent, and even all the way down to our cheesy art on our websites? I mean, for goodness sakes, from a guy who has 20 years of experience in the military like myself, you might as well put Ronald McDonald on the website before you do this guy, because it screams, I don't know military. Something like this as well. It looks like a great picture, but again, you've got the stars and stripes in the back. You've got you actually have somebody in ACU camo, which is legit, although you don't have unit, you don't have a combat patch, you don't have the actual American flag, you don't have a name tag, and the last thing that really will throw this under the bus is that nobody, especially a desktop warrior, wears a tactical turtleneck, okay? Because, again, what you see is different than what we see. This is what we see. And Dwayne Johnson actually rocking the combat fanny pack is more relevant than again what we were just showing. It has to be authentic. It has to be authentic.
Chad, quick question.
Yeah.
Are those legit pictures from employer sites, or you just grabbed?
No, they're legit.
Oh my God.
It gets worse. I mean, these are just two. I could have a full, probably 50-slide deck of companies, probably bigger, of companies who use cheesy art that have nothing to do. But I'm going to show you some great solutions from some great companies who don't. So back to the rock. Again, rock in the fanny pack. That's awesome. Then we get into, so we've got authenticity. Then we also have process. Working in this business for over a decade on the veteran side of the house, I know for a fact, even the best in class veteran hiring programs know that most veterans do not identify themselves in the process. And it's because of the experience that we force them through. And here's one of the big pieces, is we just automatically resign ourselves to throwing up different pages like this, which are, I understand, specifically honed for compliance. Although we don't front load it with any type of experience to be able to help them into something that is awkward as this. Because to be quite frank, I don't know what a protected veteran is if I am a veteran applying for a job. I've never heard it. I've never been called it. It makes no sense to me. And then I start to read through some of the different options, and then, as you can see down at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and prefer not to answer, which is what most veterans do, because it makes no sense to them. Again, you're trying to put them in a bucket that just doesn't exist in their head. Next, we have companies who try to either force candidates to translate, to decode, to decipher, to do whatever they do to crosswalk themselves into jobs. And you know, military.com isn't the only organization out there that has these. As a matter of fact, I spent 18 months of my life learning and trying to build a crosswalk that they don't work. And it's because when we take a look at what crosswalks are, there are many different layers to the onion of an individual's career in the military. But when we take a look at crosswalks, they try to use either 1 to 3 different layers, and it doesn't work. And here's a great example. This is a Fortune 100 company. I repeat, this is a Fortune 100 company. They have over 1,000 jobs posted. I put in service, Army, that's 1 layer, job, 11 Bravo, which is what I am or was, and as you can see, there are 0 civilian jobs, 0. Then what I did was I actually jumped into the jobs themselves. With the experience that I have and the background that I have, I can easily translate what jobs really somebody with a 11 Bravo background can do, whether they are lower enlisted, or even senior enlisted. And nearly 50% of the jobs that I did in the sampling would have been fine, would have been good for individuals who have 11 Bravo background and in the Army just by itself. So what we're doing is we're throwing up all these roadblocks, and we're providing a very, very horrible experience for a candidate. This is a Fortune 100 company. This is not what we want, right? We want better. And one of the reasons why I wanted to unveil these types of things today, because we can do better. And then there's the application experience, which is, as we all know, in most cases, not all, a very much a black hole, right? And that's one of the things that we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to work with. The employment branding side of the house has to work with systems, has to work with recruiting to be able to align messaging, to be able to align experience, and most of all, expectation. So you said you got a...
Yeah, we have a question from the chat room. Is there a civilian-friendly translation of 11B expertise into civilian jargon?
Ken Sevick, my friend, long time no speak. Yeah, there really isn't, and let me tell you why. I actually took out one of the slides that are in that was in this presentation, and it's called A Tale of Two Bravos. And it's me and a friend of mine. We're both 11 Bravos. He has about 15 years of experience. I have 20. And we both took incredibly different paths as 11 Bravo in the United States Army. We are looking for entirely different career progressions and paths, where I was more on the business development side, operations side of the house. He is more on the psychology side. So if you want to be able to better understand the individuals that you're trying to target, you have to understand their background more than just their military occupation, their training, all the different types of education that they've gone through in the military. So that's a great question. You can't, like I said before, really focus on 11 Bravo or the military occupation. You have to go deeper. So there you go. So application experience. And then one of the things that I like to call the I Love Me award, right? And this is something that we do in the military. And it's commonplace in the military. We have the I Love Me wall. Okay, I do it at my house. Joel can actually tell you. You walk in, there's a saber, a K-bar, I've got a bunch of different military things that I was given as awards in the military. And those are important to me, right? Those are important to me. That's how veterans see these badges in most cases when you display them on your website. That it's an I Love Me wall, because they mean something to you, but they really don't mean anything to the veteran. And that's okay. And that's okay. But at the end of the day, we have to understand from an expectation standpoint, who are we actually throwing these badges up for? Is it for the OFCCP so that they can see that we're getting these awards? Or is it for the candidate? Because when it comes down to being for the candidate, again, this is more of an I Love Me wall kind of thing.
Hey, Chad, real quick. Ken has another question. Is there a good, polite way to ask military vets to decode, in quotes, their experience into civilian vernacular?
Ken, no, there's not. I mean, there really isn't. The best way to do it, because they're not professional job seekers. They're not. But we are professional recruiters. And we are professionals in being able to break down what we need. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we actually move forward in the presentation. There are actual solutions that are out there today that can help you better understand what your current ecosystem looks like and how to better target talent out in the field. But that's a great question. But I'll talk a little bit more about that. So again, back on the veteran-friendly side of the house, I think it's awesome that you're winning these awards. I really do. But you've got to understand the culture that you're going after on the veteran side of the house. This is more of an I Love Me wall, and it means nothing to me What I need to see is proof, and the proof is real people, right? Not cheesy pictures, not the American flag, because I wore that, but real people. So then we get into the actual impact of experience, and I want to talk a little bit about Richard Branson and some work that he did. Very smart individual, obviously, in Virgin Media and all the different organizations that he owns. He had some research performed that demonstrated 75% of his customers who applied in his applicant tracking system, who went into a black hole, canceled their contracts and signed up with competitors, thus losing $6 million in revenue for that company. That's huge. And as we think of candidate experience, we need to think bigger. This is more than just the candidate. These are customers at every single level. Whether you are a consumer brand or not, it does not matter. Your brand is a customer brand. And that's how we need to have to treat it. So Richard Branson, once again, also found out that if they treated their applicants who didn't have Virgin Media or Virgin Mobile or what have you as a customer or as customers, and they treated them well, the opportunity there was a gain, prospectively, of $7 million. Again, treating the candidate as a customer is where we need to focus. That's a net of $13 million versus loss and gain.
So Chad, I have a question. Are you saying that vets who go to an employment site and see, cheesy pictures, as you so say, which last name Cheesman, I'm a little offended by that, but anyway, are you saying that if military vets see that you're not legit, they may not buy from you?
I'm saying that it actually goes into their experience, right? I think that seeing the cheesy stuff, we kind of get used to that, and we'll probably more than likely still apply for the job. But after that, how are you treating the candidate? Because that's what they are at that point. It's not really as much veteran, but they are a candidate. Are they going into a black hole? What's the experience they have? So it's the entire experience. First and foremost, did they see a bunch of cheesy clip art? Check. Yes, I did. Did I go into a process that was easy and it asked me a bunch of dumb questions about whether I'm quote unquote a protected veteran, et cetera, et cetera? And last but not least, did I go into a black hole? So it's many ingredients into the recipe of losing customers.
So not only is it good recruiting practice, it's good business practice.
It is, and when we're sitting at the table with our CEOs, our CFOs, our COOs, CEOs, at all the C levels, right? This is the conversation we need to be having with them. It is incredibly important because how many individuals actually go through your website on a daily basis? Now, I come back to the veteran side of the house. Veterans and military families, that market is $1 trillion market per year, annually. Again, $1 trillion market. How would you like to be the employer brand person that has to talk to Richard Branson after they get these stats back? That's always the thing I ask myself. So, how do we fix it, right? How do we fix it? That's a big question. We have to focus on our problems and then the solutions, walking the walk before we talk the talk. Stick with my Bill Murray Lost in Translation. I did that.
And Stripes.
I did that for Cheesman mainly. So let's take a look at the market problems, and we see that through executive board survey, 93% of HR executives at Fortune 500 companies are not satisfied with their veteran hiring program because outcomes. Again, it's not the talk. Show me outcomes. That's what they're looking for. That's what they need. The big issues are translation, attraction, and transition. 91% of it. But I'm telling you right now, if you can't translate, and this is what Ken was talking about earlier, if you can't translate and you don't know what you're looking for in this civilian position, because you have a requisition that you have to fill, and looking into this talent pool that is an entirely different talent pool with different backgrounds and skills and so on and so forth, you can't attract somebody because you don't know what you're looking for, and you can't transition because you don't know what you're looking for. So 91%, and the big problem when I build programs from the ground up, most of the time, right out of the gate, goes into translation, because that is the key. Then we take a look at actual client problems. The top 3 problems that I see clients have: veteran identification, talking to the best of the best when it comes to veteran hiring programs. They have problems still having veterans identify themselves going through the process, even after. And if you don't know, because they're not identifying themselves, if you don't know what that talent pool looks like, it's hard to target like people or like candidates, right? And if we can't target those people, we're not going to be able to hit our benchmarks.
Hey, Chad, a quick question from Maggie Kim. What are companies doing as far as programs or execution around hiring veterans, which I assume is part of the entire PowerPoint, but
Yep.
Are there specifics that you can highlight?
Yeah, we're going to go into best in class right now. Thank you. I didn't pay Maggie, just so that you know. She was just very well timed. So we're going to focus on some of the best in class solutions. These are not all that I've seen out there, but here's some. So you take a look at Enterprise Holdings. And Enterprise, actually, they go back to their heritage. Jack Taylor actually flew missions off the Enterprise in World War II. Named his organization after that Navy vessel. And what they do is, you can see these pictures are not cheesy clip art pictures. These are actual people that are working for Enterprise. Okay, so they're taking it to that next level. They're finding, and your organization might not have a World War II veteran who you can draw stories from. That's okay. You still have veterans, and they have stories, and they're still important stories. Next, you take a look at some of the best practices from Cummins Engine Company. Again, not a stock photo behind there. It's not a stock photo. This is an actual Army veteran who works for Cummins, and she's standing up beside some Cummins engines. Now, in the forward picture, you can actually see that there are 6 people and their jobs who are identified at Cummins, and these individuals are from the military. So what Cummins is doing is they're trying to make this connection between the people that are working for them now, the jobs that they're doing, and, go figure, other candidates that could prospectively do these jobs too. And they're being transparent about it. So, my favorite, and I mean, I've worked with many of companies over the years with regard to veteran hiring, and I've not seen any do as well as Lockheed Martin. I see many companies doing amazing things. Starbucks is getting a bad rap right now. They're doing a great job in hiring veterans. Amazon, Microsoft, these organizations are doing amazing jobs to be able to close gaps. But Lockheed Martin is still near and dear to my heart, just from the standpoint of they're going beyond in building things. They've built a talent community that has over 9,000 individuals in it, which is amazing, and it's best in class. They mentor, they have a mentoring program, they have stats and reporting and intelligence, and I mean, these are definitely, Terry and her group are definitely individuals that, you know, you want to connect with and have meaningful conversations, because Lockheed Martin is amazing for what they do.
Chad, a question from Audra Knight, a longtime fan of our webinars.
Yay!
She wants to know about ROI from these kinds of stories. And I know that you and I have discussed Ford in the past. Maybe there's a story you can tell.
Yeah, Audra, when it comes down to ROI, you need to understand systems, period, okay? And what I've been able to do in working with either the companies that I've worked for or my clients is I've been able to, through systems, to be to track that candidate through the process all the way to hire, okay? And then also work with, very closely, community-based organizations on the ground, like state workforce agencies, ESGRs, things of that nature, to be able to drive relevant candidates. Because I know what they're looking for, so they know. So ROI is more than key, but you have to be able to have the systems knowledge, and you have to be able to obviously get the buy-in from recruiting and the ATS staff to be able to make sure that you get those source codes in place so that they're landing in your whether your Excel spreadsheets or whatever reports that you actually run out of the ATS. But that's incredibly important. So we'll talk about Lockheed Martin and what they're doing with regard to creating a talent community, which I think is amazing. But I want to introduce something to you today that you might not have thought of or even know about, is being able to harness a social network. And I've had, over the years, many organizations say social network is the key to how we get to really that next level of playing. Instead of just posting jobs, real interaction, those types of things. How can we do that? And today, I want to talk a little bit about an organization that I've worked with over the years when I was Director of Veteran Recruiting at Ronstadt, and even beyond that, with an organization called Rally Point. Rally Point, again, is pretty much the Facebook for military. It's a social network. There's over 1 million veterans in it, and some companies are using Rally Point to create virtual ERGs to be able to really drive mentoring, not just internally, but externally. And then also there's a ton of stats and reporting and intelligence behind it. And this really now jumps that of what a Lockheed Martin is doing, which is amazing. But again, they've got 9,000 individuals in their network. Now you have an opportunity to introduce this to all of your employees, drawing those veterans out of the woodwork, inviting them in, getting them to register, which means they're identifying as veterans. So you get a higher identification rate, and then you can engage them. So there are some amazing companies that are out there that are doing this. To the left, you can see the Ford Motor Company. They're doing a great job in being able to try to, once again, introduce this new platform to their veterans all throughout Ford. This gives you, as a veteran, an opportunity to connect with old buddies, like my old Army buddies, to be able to re-engage in conversations that I used to have when I was in the military. And it really has a Facebook appeal. It's a lifestyle platform. You're there commenting on things every single day. It's not like a LinkedIn that's just specifically about recruiting or leadership. It's really about lifestyle, which is incredibly cool. You have Eaton. Tesla's doing some amazing things. And then it's funny because I talk about farmers who they're really doing a great job, but I get kind of the deer in the headlights, that headlight look every now and again, because it's like, well, they're an insurance company. Yeah, they are. But they're using this platform to do what you need to have done, which is identify the veterans that are currently working for you. And this is why. It goes beyond branch, background, specialty, and location, and then breaking it down even further. Geography is obviously important, knowing where your veterans are working in the organization, but the most important thing for me, what are they doing in the organization now? Remember, Cummins, which I think is amazing, they highlighted 6 people in 6 jobs, and they're trying to make that connection. Look how many jobs Farmers actually has that have veterans filling those positions. We're talking about high-level jobs, Director of Customer Experience, Director of Media Relations, the highest of high, the CEO, then you have sales, recruiting, I mean, all the way through, Director of Marketing, all the way through. This is important because now we have data. And Ken, this goes back to your question earlier. How can we better understand? How can we better understand the target-rich environment that we have in the military when we can't even identify what the targets look like. Now we can start to identify the targets. We can even take a look at what they did while they were in the military. And I have highlighted a combat engineer because one of my friends actually said, Chad, what in the heck is a combat engineer doing at Farmers Insurance? That makes no sense whatsoever. I said, well, Staff Sergeant James Hartman, who was a combat engineer in the Marines, is a special investigator at Farmers. Now, the beautiful part about that is, I guarantee you nobody has ever asked that question before. Nobody. Because it's never come up because you've never had the intelligence to be able to ask those questions. Now you start to formulate a base of knowledge that you've never had before, and you know, again, with this baseline, how to start to go after specific types of individuals in the military. Can you prospectively broaden this up to combat engineers in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard as well? I'm sure you probably can. But now you can start having the conversation, and it probably goes even beyond that of just combat engineers. But this is intelligence that you didn't have before. Next, using that intelligence to then target the talent. Now, this is something that I'm actually showing that you can do in Rally Point, but you can start to do these things in America's Job Exchange, in their veterans area, right? You can do it in Recruit Military, you can do it in Career Builder, you can do it in all these different areas. So, I'm not just advocating that you go into Rally Point and start using Rally Point. You need to use Rally Point to be able to draw that intelligence out, and then you start going to hiring fairs, maybe like Higher Purpose. If you feel like you can get those types of individuals on military installations, Higher Purpose might be a great decision. Or maybe they're not individuals who are currently transitioning out and they've been out for a little while. Maybe a job fair with Recruit Military. Maybe a job fair just isn't the answer at all. Maybe it's focusing on some other aspects. But again, these are questions that you don't have answers to right now. If you had the intelligence, you could start formulating the actual answers. And then as employment branding professionals, something that we have to understand is, once again, being able to effectively engage in a meaningful way this new community, right? So now we take a look at, this is actually Tesla, and Tesla is asking a great question. Instead of saying, hey, would you like to come work for Tesla, or hey, would you like to buy a Tesla vehicle? What they're saying is, how do you see the future of electronic vehicle technology? Take a look at the interaction. Over 47,000 views, over 165 likes, and over 160 comments. Once again, this is engagement, and I challenge you, go to LinkedIn, go to Facebook, use these platforms to try to engage veterans and see if you get this type of engagement, because I guarantee you won't. Now take a look at the bottom. The box at the bottom, if you can see this or not on the screen, posted in these groups. Obviously, it's posted for individuals who like Tesla Motor Company, individuals who are in Reno, San Francisco, and here's the key, individuals who have helicopter and tilt rotor maintenance backgrounds. Tesla understands what they're looking for. So not only are they putting out engaging messaging, they're targeting the message to individuals in these areas and with this background. This is really employment branding 2.0. You've got to understand your target before you start spreading a message. And unfortunately, that's what I see that we've been doing over the years, is we're letting go this broad-based message to all veterans. And unfortunately, we don't know what we're looking for, so the lion's share of them come through, go into the black hole, and then 42% of them say that you're only doing it to make yourselves look good. That's not what we want. It's not what I want. That's not what anybody wants. We want to be able to target much better. So as we get into targeting, and as we get into messaging and outreach, These are important things when we're talking about recruiting and when we're talking about compliance. Kind of a nasty word, some people think. But when we're going after from the left all the way around to the right, the community-based organizations, so we're talking to individuals and organizations in the community, we have to focus on the messaging to them as well. We know what we're looking for. Let's allow them to understand what we're looking for, as opposed to just throwing them a job description and saying, hey, send me some of these. They don't know what you're looking for. Provide the intelligence to them for targeting. Do the same with education, the employer support of Guard and Reserve, Voc Rehab, vets, state workforce agencies. I've been able to take this model and to be able to identify first, to be able to translate and identify first, and then build networks. And within a short amount of time, actually take an organization to well over 20% veteran hiring, because we knew what we were looking for. And from an experience standpoint, we're able to give them great messaging, expectations, and not, well, less. Let's say we have a less tarnished brand, because when you say no, obviously you're still going to have a little bit of tarnish on that. But we always want them to come back and continue to apply for those positions. And this is the biggest key. We have to pull together the intelligence before we start pulling together the message. We have to target better. We have to set expectations, and we have to do this through, no question, partnership with recruiting, staffing, obviously talent acquisition as a whole, systems. Maggie, I think it was Maggie, had the question about ROI. ROI is key. We have to understand what our click-through rate is. We have to understand what all of our goals are with some of the media that we're using. Maybe it's Rally Point, maybe it's Google, maybe it's Facebook, who knows. We have to understand what our ROI is there, because it all comes back to being able to take a look at how many outcomes we had, positive hiring outcomes on the veteran side. And that's a systems piece. So, Bill's right. Nobody wants to listen to me any longer. So some Q&A, if you have any. I really appreciate you guys taking now 44 minutes out of your day to listen. Hopefully I've been able to jam a bunch of information kind of into your headspace and timing where you might be thinking of some things differently. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And again, last but not least, I want to thank America's Job Exchange and the crew over there for the support today.
Thanks, Chad. I have a couple questions, and if you have a question in the chat, just feel free to put that in. My first question is, you have Cummins as an example, and you have them highlighting 6 vets on their page. Now, Cummins is a humongous company, and 6 is not a lot of people. I'm sure they hire more than 6.
Yeah.
Do you agree that 6 is too light? Should they have more veterans highlighted, or does it look like token sort of branding by having only 6 people on their site?
Yeah, I want to give Cummins Engine Company the benefit of the doubt on this, that it's a growing it's a growing initiative. Yeah, I know that there are more than 6 veterans working at Cummins Engine Company, but what I wanted to be able to demonstrate is that there are companies that are out there that are trying to make that gap, the bridge to that gap. 6 is not a lot. I agree 100%. But if you take a look at the platforms that are out there today, whether you're doing your own platform like Lockheed Martin is, or you're using Rally Point, you have to better engage your current employee base. If you're not doing that, you have to give them a reason to want and say that they're a veteran. Today, we already know that just throwing a form in front of them and saying, hey, are you a veteran, it doesn't work. So what we need to do is we need to give them reasons to want to come out of the woodwork. And a great reason is to say, hey, would you like to connect with all your Navy buddies, and would you like to get back into the community? There's this great platform, blah, blah, blah. And we've seen some really good success out of that and being able to pull more veterans out of the woodwork. And when you get more veterans out of the woodwork, you get more intelligence. And when you have more intelligence, obviously, again, you can do much more with that. So I think Cummins is on the right path. It's just they have to do much more of what they're currently doing.
So would you agree that if you did that, the message should be, Cummins employs over 100 veterans. Here's just 6 of them and their stories.
Yeah, and if you go, and I grossly underrepresented Cummins veteran website, so you can definitely go there and check out what they've got going on. They've got some good stuff going on. They've got some things that I would definitely change that are going on. But again, I think to be able to demonstrate that they are doing some things very well, not using cheesy clip art, and really trying to identify some jobs that are good for veterans right out of the gate is good.
Good. Another question I thought of, the question of mobile.
Yeah.
The veteran military demo strikes me as a very mobile audience.
Stupidly mobile.
Everyone is, but that one in particular.
Yeah.
Are there any numbers around mobile, or do you have any opinion on making sure that your initiatives are mobile friendly?
Yeah, I don't have any numbers right out of. I just have common experience. So these are anecdotal, but I do know that veterans, in most cases, and let's just say currently serving military, we might be carrying a laptop around with us in the field, but we're not on it all the time. We are on our mobile. So from the field, we've got our mobile phone with us pretty much all over the place. So we are very mobile. And if you are creating an experience, and this goes beyond my even thought at this point, but I mean, I'm always thinking mobile first. So whenever you're creating a site, it should be not desktop first, but mobile first, because the interactions that are happening are so important. And then when you start taking a look at platforms like a Rally Point, or maybe even America's Job Exchange, these individuals who are using these platforms via mobile and then finding their way to your site, if they have a really nasty, transition from mobile to a desktop pinchy squeezy game, then it's probably again not going to be a great experience.
Last question I had. Social media. You talked a little bit about job sites, traditional. You talked about social networking. Sites like Facebook, Twitter, etc., offer a really interesting, unique way to target people who are, specifically in the Navy or in. Do you agree with that strategy? Do you know of any companies that are using social media advertising platforms to market themselves and drive traffic? Any comments about that?
Yeah, I have. I've had organizations who they've tried to really focus on some of the military aspect on Facebook, and I think Facebook is doing a halfway decent job of it. The problem is, I mean, it's kind of gray. I can't even tell you right now if Army is on my Facebook profile or not. Because it didn't even come to me. It might be, it might not be. But when you take a look at other platforms, and I mean, LinkedIn, I think really missed the boat with this because they haven't had a really robust way of asking, not really robust, meaningful way of asking for military backgrounds. They just say, hey, throw your military background in this civilian thing, right? Or you go into Rally Point, that's where they're doing it much better at a higher level, and they're getting so much more data than a site like LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn does an amazing job. It's just that from this standpoint in this community, the Rally Points of the world are really doing, I mean, they're above and beyond because they do represent that community where LinkedIn, just maybe a portion of them do. There are a few people on staff maybe.
Curious, you as a veteran, do you notice ads on Facebook and the like targeting you with ads with military people or things that are military specific?
I think it's more products, and I don't think it really has anything to do with military. I think it just has to do with my behavior.
You like guns, so
Smith
and Wesson.
Yeah, so possibly weapons or movies, or I mean, it has to do with really just my behavior. It really doesn't. Thus far, I haven't seen that it has anything to do with my military background.
Okay, quick question from Mike. Just wants to know how safe Rally Point is from a online security perspective. Not that you can probably speak to Rally Point's internet security, but he has a question about that. Yep, so he has a question.
Yeah, I know that the group over at Rally Point is doing a ton of work around, and they have from day one, around providing a secure product. So, I mean, I can't really speak to that specifically, Mike, but if you reach out to me, you can email me. I can hook you up with the team over there, and they can answer any questions with regard to security or what have you. But more than likely, have to have more of a pointed question around what aspect of security that you're looking for.
He says check, will do.
Excellent.
All right, guys, if there aren't any other questions, we're coming up almost an hour. Again, you'll get a video of this recording so you can share it with others or have it for your reference. We'll send you the presentation in PDF format. If there are questions post-wise, Chad_Sowash on Twitter. You can also email me, joel@ratedly.com. Thanks for your time, guys. We appreciate it. Have a great Valentine's Day. Lots of love.
Lots of love.